Okay, 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 okay. I'm studying the Bible in Toronto. 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 Studying the Bible with Mike, Sam, Pat. These other YouTubers are just so trash. Hit the thumbs up if you wanna support. Go follow Mike as he follows the Lord. I'm studying the Bible in Toronto. 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 You better watch out, Mike's calling out the shills. If you're not free grace, you need to sit down and chill. We're not hyper grace, you know we keep it real. Eternally secure, you know that we're sealed. We don't back low, we're not workspace heretics. Mike's not in it for the money, trying to get a lick. They out here selling their souls for a couple clicks. Becoming Freemasons so they can't just get rich. I'm studying the Bible in Toronto. 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 Shout out to Mike, Sam, Pat. Check out his channel, Toronto Bible Study. Subscribe and like.
Chapter 17. Now the Philistines gathered together their armies to battle, and were gathered together at Shoko, which belongeth to Judah, and pitched between Shoko and Azekah in Ephes-dammim. And Saul and the men of Israel were gathered together and pitched by the valley of Elah, and set the battle in array against the Philistines. And the Philistines stood on a mountain on the one side, and Israel stood on a mountain on the other side, and there was a valley between them. And there went out a champion out of the camp of the Philistines, named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. And he had an helmet of brass upon his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail, and the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of brass. And he had greaves of brass upon his legs, and a target of brass between his shoulders. And the staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and his spear's head weighed 600 shekels of iron. And one bearing a shield went before him. And he stood and cried unto the armies of Israel, and said unto them, Why are ye come out to set your battle in array? Am not I a Philistine, and ye servants to Saul? Choose you a man for you, and let him come down to me. If he be able to fight with me and to kill me, then will we be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then shall ye be our servants and serve us. And the Philistine said, I defy the armies of Israel this day. Give me a man that we may fight together. When Saul and all Israel heard those words of the Philistine, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. Now David was the son of that Ephrathite of Bethlehem, Judah, whose name was Jesse, and he had 8 sons. And the man went among men for an old man in the days of Saul. And the 3 eldest sons of Jesse went and followed Saul to the battle. And the names of his 3 sons that went to the battle were Eliab, the firstborn, and next unto him Abinadab, and the third Shammah. And David was the youngest, and the 3 eldest followed Saul. But David went and returned from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. And the Philistine drew near morning and evening, and presented himself 40 days. And Jesse said unto David his son, Take now for thy brethren an ephah of this parched corn, and these 10 loaves, and run to the camp to thy brethren, and carry these 10 cheeses unto the captain of their 1,000, and look how thy brethren fare, and take their pledge. Now Saul and they and all the men of Israel were in the valley of Elah, fighting with the Philistines. And David rose up early in the morning, and left the sheep with the keeper, and took and went as Jesse had commanded him. And he came to the trench, as the host was going forth to the fight, and shouted for the battle. For Israel and the Philistines had put the battle in array, army against army. And David left his carriage in the hand of the keeper of the carriage, and ran into the army, and came and saluted his brethren. And as he talked with them, behold, there came up the champion, the Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, out of the armies of the Philistines, and spake according to the same words. And David heard them. And all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled before him, and were sore afraid. And the men of Israel said, Have ye seen this man that is come up? Surely to defy Israel is he come up. And it shall be that the man who killeth him, the king will enrich him with great riches, and will give him his daughter, and make his father's house free in Israel. And David spake to the men that stood by him, saying, What shall be done to the man that killeth this Philistine, and taketh away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine, that he should defy the armies of the living God? And the people answered him after this manner, saying, So shall it be done to the man that killeth him. And Eliab, his eldest brother, heard when he spake unto the men, and Eliab's anger was kindled against David. And he said, Why camest thou down hither? And with whom hast thou left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know thy pride, and the naughtiness of thine heart, for thou art come down that thou mightest see the battle. And David said, What have I now done? Is there not a cause? And he turned from him toward another, and spake after the same manner. And the people answered him again after the former manner. And when the words were heard which David spake, they rehearsed them before Saul, and he sent for him. And David said to Saul, Let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with this Philistine. And Saul said to David, Thou art not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for thou art but a youth, and he a man of war from his youth. And David said unto Saul, Thy servant kept his father's sheep. There came a lion and a bear, and took a lamb out of the flock. And I went out after him and smote him, and delivered it out of his mouth. And when he arose against me, I caught him by his beard, and smote him and slew him. My servant slew both the lion and the bear. And this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he hath defied the armies of the living God. David said moreover, The Lord that delivered me out of the paw of the lion, and out of the paw of the bear, he will deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine. And Saul said unto David, Go, and the Lord be with thee. And Saul armed David with his armor, and he put an helmet of brass upon his head. Also he armed him with a coat of mail. And David girded his sword upon his armor, and he essayed to go, for he had not proved it. And David said unto Saul, I cannot go with these, for I have not proved them. And David put them off him. And he took his staff in his hand, and chose him 5 smooth stones out of the brook, and put them in a shepherd's bag which he had, even in a scrip. And his sling was in his hand, and he drew near to the Philistine. And the Philistine came on and drew near unto David, and the man that bare the shield went before him. And when the Philistine looked about, and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but a youth, and ruddy, and of a fair countenance. And the Philistine said unto David, Am I a dog, that thou comest to me with staves? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. And the Philistine said to David, Come to me, and I will give thy flesh unto the fowls of the air, and to the beasts of the field. Then said David to the Philistine, Thou comest to me with a sword, and with a spear, and with a shield. But I come to thee in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defied. This day will the Lord deliver thee into mine hand, and I will smite thee, and take thine head from thee. And I will give the carcasses of the host of the Philistines this day unto the fowls of the air, and to the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. And all this assembly shall know that the Lord saveth not with sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands. And it came to pass, when the Philistine arose and came and drew nigh to meet David, that David hasted and ran toward the army to meet the Philistine. And David put his hand in his bag, and took thence a stone, and slang it, and smote the Philistine in his forehead, that the stone sunk into his forehead, and he fell upon his face to the earth. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and with a stone, and smote the Philistine and slew him. But there was no sword in the hand of David. Therefore David ran and stood upon the Philistine, and took his sword, and drew it out of the sheath thereof, and slew him, and cut off his head therewith. And when the Philistines saw their champion was dead, they fled. And the men of Israel and of Judah arose, and shouted, and pursued the Philistines, until thou come to the valley and to the gates of Ekron. And the wounded of the Philistines fell down by the way to Shaaraim, even unto Gath and unto Ekron. And the children of Israel returned from chasing after the Philistines, and they spoiled their tents. And David took the head of the Philistine, and brought it to Jerusalem. But he put his armor in his tent. And when Saul saw David go forth against the Philistine, he said unto Abner, the captain of the host, Abner, whose son is this youth? And Abner said, As thy soul liveth, O king, I cannot tell. And the king said, Inquire thou whose son the stripling is. And as David returned from the slaughter of the Philistine, Abner took him, and brought him before Saul with the head of the Philistine in his hand. And Saul said to him, Whose son art thou young man? And David answered, I am the son of thy servant Jesse the Bethlehemite. Chapter 12. Whoso loveth instruction loveth knowledge, but he that hateth reproof is brutish. A good man obtaineth favor of the Lord, but a man of wicked devices will he condemn. A man shall not be established by wickedness, but the root of the righteous shall not be moved. A virtuous woman is a crown to her husband, but she that maketh ashamed is as rottenness in his bones. The thoughts of the righteous are right, but the counsels of the wicked are deceit. The words of the wicked are to lie in wait for blood, but the mouth of the upright shall deliver them. The wicked are overthrown and are not, but the house of the righteous shall stand. A man shall be commended according to his wisdom, but he that is of a perverse heart shall be despised. He that is despised and hath a servant is better than he that honoureth himself and lacketh bread. A righteous man regardeth the life of his beast, but the tender mercies of the wicked are cruel. He that tilleth his land shall be satisfied with bread, but he that followeth vain persons is void of understanding. The wicked desireth the net of evil men, but the root of the righteous yieldeth fruit. The wicked is snared by the transgression of his lips, but the just shall come out of trouble. A man shall be satisfied with good by the fruit of his mouth, and the recompense of a man's hands shall be rendered unto him. The way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but he that hearkeneth unto counsel is wise. A fool's wrath is presently known, but a prudent man covereth shame. He that speaketh truth showeth forth righteousness, but a false witness deceit. There is that speaketh like the piercings of a sword, but the tongue of the wise is health. The lip of truth shall be established forever, but a lying tongue is but for a moment. Deceit is in the heart of them that imagine evil, but to the counselors of peace is joy. There shall no evil happen to the just, but the wicked shall be filled with mischief. Lying lips are abomination to the Lord, but they that deal truly are his delight. A prudent man concealeth knowledge, but the heart of fools proclaimeth foolishness. The hand of the diligent shall bear rule, but the slothful shall be under tribute. Heaviness in the heart of man maketh it stoop, but a good word maketh it glad. The righteous is more excellent than his neighbor, but the way of the wicked seduceth them. The slothful man roasteth not that which he took in hunting, but the substance of a diligent man is precious. In the way of righteousness is life, and in the pathway thereof there is no death.
Hang on. I don't know why it's like this. Why am I on the side like this? So weird. Anyway, sorry guys, hang on. Just let me fix this thing. I don't know why it's doing this. Okay. Hello everyone. Or nobody's here, so that's okay. But hello. Hello. Welcome to Toronto Bible Study. I'm your host, Mike Sampat. And today we're going to look at Isaiah chapter 10. Okay. Thanks for joining, everyone. Or nobody's here, but that's okay. So let me just say a prayer and then we'll get started. Heavenly Father, Almighty God, Father, you are clothed in majesty. You are clothed in strength. You're a mighty God, Father, a mighty King. Father, we just ask that you bless us now with wisdom, with guidance, with gentleness. As we're about to study Isaiah 11, a beautiful chapter, Father, and a wonderful promise And we're just looking forward to studying this and learning and to growing in the faith, and also to apply these things in our lives in a way that's glorifying to you, glorifying to your holy Son, Jesus Christ. Bless the listeners, Father. Give them wisdom, give them strength, give them encouragement, and help us all to become better servants of you and of your holy Son, Jesus Christ. On him be glory forever and ever. Amen. All right, so let's go. Nobody's here today, man. I'm all by myself. That's okay, though. That's okay. I don't need to have people with me, but it's nice when I do, but it's okay. So Isaiah 11. This is an amazing chapter. Let's talk a little bit about what happened before this. Okay, so Isaiah 1, we saw that this whole book is by Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amoz, and he was prophesying over the course of 4 kings, the reign of 4 kings, Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah. And in that time, he was prophesying about the coming judgment, both on Israel, the northern kingdom of Israel, and on the southern kingdom of Judah. So the first one happened during his lifetime. The second one happened after he passed away. What I mean is the destruction of the kingdom of Israel, the northern kingdom of Israel, came during Isaiah's lifetime, and the destruction of Judah came after he passed away. So chapters 1 to 5 were a kind of preface for the book, where he sort of gives you, or he introduces you to a bunch of ideas about the judgment that's coming and why. And then that's chapter 1 to 5. And then chapter 6, that was depicting Isaiah's call to be a prophet. And he had a vision of God in the temple, and God told him to go and warn the people, even though God knew that the people would not listen, that they would harden their hearts. Then in chapter 7, we saw a bit of a historical note as Isaiah was told by God to go and meet the king Ahaz and warn him about the prophecy of the warn him not to worry about those 2 kings that were going to attack him. He was going to be attacked by the king of Israel and the king of Aram, or the Arameans. And so they were going to come down and attack him to force him to be their ally against the Assyrians. But the Assyrians are this huge superpower. There's no way even all 3 of those kingdoms together can face them. So it's smarter for Ahaz to stay out of it, but he's thinking to himself, okay, I'm going to make an alliance with the Assyrians against those 2, and that will keep me safe. But God is telling him, no, don't worry about that. Just trust in me. But instead, he ends up making the deal with the Assyrians, and that spells his doom. And God had asked him to ask him for a sign so that he could know that God is with him, right? But instead, he refuses to ask for a sign. And then God says, okay, I will give you a sign. And that's when he prophesies about Emmanuel, God with us. A virgin shall be with child, and shall call his name Emmanuel. So that was chapter 7. And then in chapter 8, now we know the judgment is certain. And we saw Isaiah's son, Meir Shalal Hashbaz, which means quick to the spoil, fast to the booty, fast to the plunder. So that's like the Assyrians are going to be fast to the plunder of Israel and Aram. But it also predicts the fall of Judah as well, but they're going to come later. That's going to come later for them. So the judgment is certain according to Isaiah 8, but the people should trust in God rather than fear human armies or anything like that, because it doesn't matter about them. All that matters is God's power. In Isaiah 9, we saw the promise of the Messianic king to come. The king who will be called the Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Prince of Peace. Right? And then he's going to bring light, peace, restoration, but judgment still follows that prophecy because of Israel's arrogance. Okay? Then in chapter 10, we saw that God is using Assyria as his instrument to judge Israel and Aram, but then he'll also turn around and then judge the Assyrians later on. So it's not as if he's just using them. It's not as if they get to just have whatever they want. They're going to think that they're winning when they spoil Israel and Aram, but then they're going to end up getting cut down themselves. And the chapter ends, chapter 10 ended with an image of Assyria as this forest that's being cut down. 10:34. And he shall cut down the thickets of the forest with iron, and Lebanon shall fall by a mighty one. So all those armies are going to be cut down like a forest. That's the image we're left with at the end of chapter 10. And then chapter 11 begins that we learn that a rod will come forth out of the stem of Jesse. The stem is like kind of like the stump or the cutoff, like all the trees were cut down in chapter 10 at the end, right? Now it's talking about one tree, one stump, and there's going to be a rod that comes out of it, a branch. He'll grow out of his roots. And this is a prophecy of Christ, the branch. But what's interesting is that it shows this continuity between the cut down forest of the Assyrians, and now this stump grows a branch that will bring peace. So that's how we begin chapter 11. Okay, so let me read from. I don't know. Maybe I'll just read the whole chapter and then we'll go through it. Okay. And there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots. And the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and of the fear of the Lord. And shall make him of quick understanding in the fear of the Lord. And he shall not judge after the sight of his eyes, neither reprove after the hearing of his ears. But with righteousness shall he judge the poor, and reprove with equity for the meek of the earth. And he shall smite the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips shall he slay the wicked. And righteousness shall be the girdle of his loins, and faithfulness the girdle of his reins. The wolf also shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid. And the calf and the young lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. And the cow and the bear shall feed, and their young ones shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox. And the suckling child shall play on the hole of the asp, and the weaned child shall put his hand on the cockatrice's den. They shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain, but the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. And in that day there shall be a root of Jesse, which shall stand for an ensign of the people. To which shall the Gentiles seek, and his rest shall be glorious. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left, from Assyria and from Egypt and from Pathros and from Cush and from Elam and from Shinar and from Hamath and from the islands of the sea. And he shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. The envy also of Ephraim shall depart, and the adversaries of Judah shall be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not vex Ephraim. But they shall fly upon the shoulders of the Philistines toward the west. They shall spoil them of the east together. They shall lay their hand upon Edom and Moab, and the children of Ammon shall obey them. And the Lord shall utterly destroy the tongue of the Egyptian sea, and with his mighty wind shall he shake his hand over the river, and shall smite it in the 7 streams, and make men go over dry shod. And there shall be an highway for the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria, like as it was to Israel in the day that he came up out of the land of Egypt. Amen. So that's chapter 11. Let's talk about it verse by verse now. Now, this first verse, so these first few verses are very important because they have this prophecy about Jesus. But actually, let's talk about the whole chapter, and then I'll talk to you about these verses individually. So this is the second time Isaiah has extended this hope of the Messiah to the remnant. It's a word of assurance for the dark day of the Assyrian threat, but it contains indications that its fulfillment is for a time yet to come. Not now, but in the future. Oh, hey, Nathan, how are you, brother? Thanks for joining, man. I didn't have anybody here. I was all by myself, but thanks for joining, brother. So the Assyrian threat is coming soon, but the prophecy about the Messiah is going to be in the future sometime. We don't know when. So it's undated. So it's like this ever-present hope, ever-present assurance for God's people. Oh, hey, Kako, what's up, brother? God bless, man. Thanks for joining. So that's why this passage speaks as much to the church today as it does to the people in Isaiah's time, because it's about the Messiah. We don't know when he's coming, but when he comes, he's going to bring peace, hope, joy. And so we just wait. We all wait for that day. Now, there's some evidence that this poem might have had a previous existence. Like maybe Isaiah wrote all these things and then he collected it into the book. You know, that's what a lot of people think, because especially when you think about chapter 1 to 5. All chapter 1 to 5 happens before he gets the call. So if we're looking at this as a kind of narrative of his life as a preacher, then chapter 1 to 5 is before his call. So he wouldn't have had any prophecies before his call, right? So where did those prophecies come from? Maybe it was like he's prophesying over his whole life, writing it down as he goes, and then when he finally, maybe near the end of his life, he decided to collect it all into a book. That's when he made the first 5 chapters, which were already being prophesied by him, but that he collected them in the first 5 chapters as a kind of preface for the book. Then he made chapter 6, which shows his call by God, and then 7, where you see him going to the king. That's kind of the first political act as a prophet in his life, and then we get the rest of the story, right? So that's kind of what it seems to look like. So then when we look at a chapter like this, it may be that verses 1 to 10 were like, or maybe 1 to 9 were an original poem, then 10 and 11 were some kind of like piece that he put in the middle, and then 12 to the end is another little poem. It seems like it, but it can't be. We can't be sure about these things, but it does look like that because I'll point out some of the features of these pieces as we go, why people think that. But there does seem to be two self-contained poems, one from 1 to 9, and one from 12 to 16, and then 10 and 11. There's a little section in between, which may be kind of prose, because the other 2 are poems. And so 10 and 11 are like a little prose section in between that introduces. First it concludes the first poem, and then it introduces the second poem. Um, but in the second poem, then we have the act of the Lord is to raise, gather, and assemble the people. And then his other act of three is to dry up, sweep, and break his enemies. Okay. So the two poems kind of complement each other. The first is about the king and his rule and how it will work in the paradise when he arrives, when the Messiah comes. Hey Angelo, what's up, bro? Am I early today? Really? Oh, maybe you know what it is? I think it's because we have daylight savings times. Maybe you guys don't have that. But that's weird because most of Europe has it, right? Or I guess Western Europe, maybe not in the Romania. Or well, you're in like Serbia, right? Or Bosnia or Serbia, right? Sorry, man. I'm so dumb. Anyway, wherever you live, I guess they don't have daylight savings time, but we do in Canada. That's why. Anyway, that's why I'm ahead of you. Sorry, man. Sorry, I forgot where you live. My bad. But yeah, these two poems complement each other. No way, you're in Denmark? Oh yeah, you told me that too, man. But you originally you're from like Romania, right? I don't even know, man. I'm so sorry. I have no memory. I have ADHD, so blame that. And also I just got too much on my mind. I can't keep up with all this stuff. But that's my bad, bro. I should know where you live. Oh, you're in Canada too? Nice, bro. Canadians. So yeah, so these poems complement each other, all right? The first is with the king. Croatia. Oh, Croatia. Oh, I'm so dumb. That's why I said everything. I said Serbia, Bosnia. I said Bosnia. I'm so dumb. And then now, okay, Croatia. Okay, good. Yeah, memory, Mike. Hey, don't do double M's, man. People are gonna try to say I'm a master M. In all the countries in the region, like the whole Balkan region, you know. So the first poem deals with the king and how his rule is gonna be, like the great king, the Messiah king, right? And the second poem from 11 to 16 that deals with like the people that are gathered to God's banner, okay? And then there's these bridging verses at 10 and 11, which are a very nice little piece of prose in the middle, and they unite the two poems, you know. And each of those that opens with this phrase in that day, in the Lord's day. So with the first one, chapter verse 10 is concluding the previous poem. And then the second one in 11 is opening the second poem. And verse 10 is like it has this kind of inclusio. Remember we talked about the inclusio? That's when you have some words or some context or something, some kind of concept or something at the beginning of a piece, and then it's repeated at the end of the piece. That's what they call an inclusio. And so what that tells you is that little piece is its own little self-contained literary piece. And also usually the inclusio phrase or word or whatever, it provides you some clue about the theme of the piece. Okay. Yeah, the glow model messes up, bro. With these hours and all this stuff. I don't even like daylight savings time. I feel like it's useless. My students in China, they don't have it. So then I have to adjust my schedule for their thing. It's so bizarre because I end up getting I feel it's so bizarre because like one girl I have a teacher at like 4:30 in the morning. But then during the whole winter, it's like I have to get up at like 3:30, you know? It's so crazy. Yeah. I got students in China over the internet. We teach them English and stuff, you know? I wish I could teach them the Bible, but I think it's kind of like it's kind of like I don't know. They don't like that in China. They don't like talking about that stuff too much. But anyway, so and then verse 11 also has an inclusio. So verse 10 has an inclusio for verse 1, and verse 11 has an inclusio for verse 16. We'll talk about that as we go. And then so it's interesting because the way the inclusios work, it's like there's this day, right? The great day. And so there's this great day in the past and a great day in the future. And they both kind of match up based on the way the poems are arranged. Yeah, I teach all that stuff, like grammar, writing. Like basically I work with them to try to get them to have like better English, to improve their writing, improve their speaking, etc. Right? So depending on which students, different students require different sort of they each have their own strengths and weaknesses, right? So we work with them differently. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a very cool job. It doesn't pay that well though, so I mean, it's a good thing if you guys are like you guys are young guys, right? So it's kind of cool if you want a little part-time job for while you're maybe while you're in school. That's what I was using it for while I was in school. So in that sense, it's good, you know. But if you wanted to do it for like your lifetime, it won't really work. That's why I'm trying to make some money with this Bible teaching thing, but I'll leave that up to the Lord. All right. So the hope. So this is a passage about hope. All right, but there is some judgment here as well. But anyway, so let me show you the structure of it. Okay. Oh yeah, yeah. I know. It's tough when you're in university, boy. I tell you, you're in your undergrad. What are you taking, man? That's awesome, bro. Congratulations. So okay, so verses 1 and 2 are about the branch prophecy. So that's about Jesus, okay? Then 3 to 5 is about like his rule and his reign. Okay? Then 6 to 9 is about his world, how his world is going to be. All right? Then chapter 10 is the end of that. As I was telling you, that's like the kind of end of the previous poem. Then 11 is the opener for the second poem. Then 12 and 13, or I mean, the second poem from 12 to 16 is like poem about the Lord's hand, his judgment, his actions. Okay? And then so 12 to 13 is about his banner raised, the Lord's banner is raised, and the people come to it. And then 14 is about his world kingdom, his world dominion. And then 15 and 16 is about the Lord's hand at the end of the divided world. Everything is going to be one world together under him. And it has this concept of another Exodus almost. Like the historical Exodus is a model for the Exodus that occurs or that is predicted here, okay? But one of the interesting things about this passage though is this dual title for the king. So you can see here in verse 10, he's called the root of Jesse in verse 10. But in verse 1, he's called a rod out of the stem of Jesse. So he's growing out of Jesse in verse 1. But in verse 10, he's the root of Jesse. So Jesse grows out of him, right? Which is very unusual, right? We wouldn't think of that. But of course, when we think of Jesus, that makes perfect sense. He's born of a man. He's born of Jesse is David's father, right? So he grows out of Jesse. But at the same time, he is the creator of the universe. So Jesse grows out of him. So that's why that's a very interesting prophecy about him. So it's not merely He's not merely just another, and even the fact that he's a shoot out of Jesse, it's not like any other king. No other king in Israel's history is described that way. They're all the son of David. All the kings of Israel, right? Or kings of Judah, sorry, were all the son of David, right? But only Jesus is described as coming out of Jesse. So what they're kind of saying is that he's another David. All right, that's one aspect of it here. And then the fact that he's also the root of Jesse shows that he's greater than David. You know, David is his son in another way, right? Hey, what's up? How are you, Liliana? Hey, Tony, what's up, bro? God bless, man. Oh, biomed, cool, man. That's cool. That's interesting. Guess you're a smart dude. I never fully understood the sevenfold spirits and 11 too. All right, we'll talk about that. Well, hi, Liliana. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining. So anyway, okay. So so what I was saying is, yeah, none of them call or none of the kings of Israel or Judah were ever called like the they're never referred to as the root of Jesse or the stem growing out of Jesse. None of them, right? So this is a very unique king. They're not called the son of Jesse either. They're called the son of David sometimes, but only David is called the son of Jesse. Okay, let me show you that. So when all Israel saw that the king hearkened not unto them, people answered the king, saying, what portion have we in David? Neither have we inheritance in the son of Jesse. To your tents, O Israel, now to thine own house, David. So Israel departed unto their tents. So this is when the northern kingdom of Israel left David and went their own way. They left David's grandson, this guy Rehoboam. But anyway, the point is though that they don't call him David is the son of Jesse, not any other king. Okay, but here they're calling Jesus a root, a stem, a rod that grows out of Jesse. That means that he's kind of like another David. And then to call him the root of Jesse means that Jesse came from him, so that means he's basically God. So it doesn't really say that he's God, but it's like, what other explanation is there? Right? For us, we understand it. For them, maybe they didn't, but we understand it, right? But according to Genesis 15, Genesis 3:15, I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. So the human family is kept in being because within the human family, the seed of the woman will be born and he will defeat the devil, right? And that seed is coming down through the line of the house of David. So basically what we're seeing here is that the Messiah is the cause of his own family tree, and he's also born out of his family tree. So that's that. Anyway, okay. So now going back to this, Isaiah 11. So we'll talk about this section from 1 to 5 first, okay? The coming of this righteous king. And so you have this imagery of the stump and the branch here. Jesse, King David's father, represents the Davidic dynasty. The stump, or our thing says the stem, right? But this is often thought of as the stump. But it's that idea that the tree has been cut down, but then this other branch comes out of it. the branch which is Jesus. So Judah's monarchy is going to be cut down, and we'll see that, and we saw that also here, right, in 10:33 to 34. Behold, the Lord of hosts, shall lop the bow with terror. The bow is the tree branch, right? And the high ones of stature shall be hewn down, and the haughty shall be humbled. And he shall cut down the thickets of the forest with iron, and Lebanon shall fall by a mighty one. So the forest is cut down, but then now we get this image of a stump, which out of the stump grows the branch, which is Jesus. Okay. And this idea of calling Jesus a branch is found in a few other places. Jeremiah 23:5. Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will raise unto David a righteous branch, and a king shall reign and prosper, and shall execute judgment and justice in the earth. And also Zechariah 6:12. So Jeremiah is a prophet who came shortly after Isaiah, and he's prophesying in Judah after the fall of the northern kingdom. He's prophesying in Judah about the coming Babylonian conquest, right? And and he lives through that as well. If you look at Zechariah 6:12, this is a prophet who came after they returned from Babylon. All right, then Zechariah was there. And speak unto him, saying, Thus speaketh the Lord of hosts, saying, Behold, the man whose name is the branch, and he shall grow up out of his place, and he shall build the temple of the Lord. Now, the branch didn't build the temple, right? Because Jesus is the temple. And also, we might say the church is the temple. So he built the temple of the Lord, right? So anyway. Oh, by the way, this word branch. Oh, sorry, I should go. This word branch. See how it's netzer? I don't know if you can see that, but anyway, let me show you that in the Hebrew. Or maybe you can't even read this anyway, right? But let me just show it to you anyway. It'll give you an idea. I'm gonna start a Hebrew class, guys. So if you guys want to, or let me know. You guys think that'll be interesting at all or whatever? I don't know. Anyway, netzer. This is the noon. It sounds like an N. This is zade. It sounds like a tz. It's that sound. Tz, like TZ. TZ. That's what that sound is. And then this is the, I forget what they call this letter, but it sounds like a R. Okay. Is it Ra or something like that? Anyway, Netzer it sounds like Nazarene. That's why people think, because he's called the branch, right? Which is the word Netzer. If you look in Matthew, Matthew 2:23, and he came and dwelt in a city called Nazareth, that it might be fulfilled which is spoken by the prophets, he shall be called a Nazarene. So we don't actually have this prophecy in the Old Testament, right? Now, it may be that Matthew's talking about a prophecy that we don't have. That's possible. Or it's also possible and likely is referring to these prophecies about the branch. And I showed you a couple of other ones, right? Because the branch is known as Netzer. So it sounds like Nazarene. But when people heard this, they might have thought Nazarene, like there's a certain people in Israel, if they take a certain vow, the vow of the Nazarene, then they would have to like not drink alcohol and never cut their hair and stuff like that. Like Samson, he was a Nazarene, yeah. So some people thought that that's what it meant, but actually, no, it's referring to this, yeah. But anyway, so the point is though that this king is going to be empowered by the Spirit of God, okay? And then we're going to talk about the sevenfold spirits, but let me get into this first. Let me get into verse 1 first. So The imagery is here of a tree that's been cut down, right? As I was saying to you, which is following from the poem that we saw earlier about all these trees that got cut down. So there's one tree that's cut down, but it will have a root growing out of it. There's this hidden vitality of the root remains there. And so he's talking about his own prediction that he made earlier. If you recall, Isaiah 6:13. This is a very dark prediction, right? But at the end of it, let me read this whole thing. But yet in it shall be a tenth. All right, let me read from here. So he's talking about how there's going to be this judgment on Israel, right? And that's why Isaiah says, then said I, Lord, how long? And he answered, until the cities be wasted without inhabitants, and the houses without man, and the land be utterly desolate. And the Lord have removed men far away, and there be a great forsaking in the midst of the land. But yet in it shall be a tenth, and it shall return, and shall be eaten, as a teal tree and as an oak, whose substance is in them, when they cast their leaves. So the holy seed shall be the substance thereof. So there's going to be this remnant that returns to Israel, okay? And they're going to have their troubles. They're going to be eaten like a teal tree, but there's still going to be this holy seed within them. That's the hope that he gives them here. The holy seed is the substance thereof. Okay, and this word substance can also be thought of as like the stump of a tree. So it's kind of continuing this prophecy from verse 6, chapter 6. That's what we're seeing here. Okay, so where am I here? So yeah, so actually, I'm going to go back to chapter 6 for a sec. Because when Isaiah was called, he was warned that the land would be empty. And he said, "Go and tell this people, hear ye indeed, but understand not." This is God talking to Isaiah, right? He's saying, "Go and tell this people, the Jews, hear ye indeed, but understand not, and see ye indeed, but perceive not. Make the heart of this people fat, and make their ears heavy, and shut their eyes, lest they see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and understand with their hearts, and convert, and be healed. Then said I, Lord, how long? And he answered, until the cities be wasted without inhabitant, the houses without man, and the land be utterly desolate." So this is like this land is completely emptied of all its inhabitants, right? And the Lord have removed men far away. That's when they get taken to Babylon. And there be a great forsaking in the midst of the land. That is, the land has been forsaken. But yet in it shall be a tent. That's the remnant that will return. Okay? So that's the prophecy. And then the holy seed is the hope. That's Jesus. So when we come here now, the seed, the holy seed that was in the stump, is now growing into a rod, the rod of Jesse, the branch. Okay? But this is also a prophecy that we don't know when it's going to happen yet, you know? Or they don't know. We know when it happens, but they don't know, right? And actually, there's another one in Isaiah 7:9. It's worth looking at here. And the head of Ephraim is Samaria, and the head of Samaria is Remaliah's son. If you will not believe, surely you shall not be established. Wait. Is that the one I was talking about? Sorry, you guys. I'm getting confused here. My notes are a mess as usual. Oh, this is to tell them that the monarchy that they live under won't survive. Like the head of Samaria is Remaliah's son. That is that's the king of Israel. So it's talking about how they won't survive. They're going to be taken away. That's the northern kingdom. They're going to be taken away. But this prediction here doesn't need the fall of the monarchy to prompt it. It's just that it's going to happen. And he's just predicting it, you know? But it's weird because he's predicting this glory of the Davidic line. And we saw this earlier as well. Like this is saying that the Davidic line is going to return and be glorious, right? And we saw this here as well in chapter 1. I will turn my hand upon thee and purely purge away thy dross and take away all thy sin. And I will restore thy judges as at the first, and thy counselors as at the beginning. Afterwards thou shalt be called the city of righteousness, the faithful city. Zion shall be redeemed with judgment, and her converts with righteousness. So he's already given us this hope of the Davidic king coming back and having hope. But he also predicts his downfall, right? For example, 7:17, the Lord shall bring upon thee and upon thy people and upon thy father's house days that have not come from the day of that Ephraim departed from Judah, even the king of Assyria. So that's why you get this tension in the prophecies. Like there's always this tension. What there's on the one hand, it's saying that that the house of David will have a glorious kingdom forever. On the other hand, it's saying that they're going to be cut off and taken away and all this stuff. So that's why we see in 9:1-7 we had this prophecy, which is also brought up in the New Testament. Nevertheless, the dimness shall not be such as was in her vexation, when at the first he lightly afflicted the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali, and afterward did more grievously afflict her by the way of the sea beyond Jordan, in Galilee of the nations. And this prophecy appears in Matthew chapter 4 as well. The people that walked in darkness have seen a great light. And they that dwell in the land of the shadow of death, upon them hath the light shined. And then now we have this one in 11, which is another one of hope of the prophecy of the Messiah to come, right? So God must either fulfill these promises or take them back. And we know God always, all his promises are never taken back, right? So he will affirm all these. Now this word, the rod or the shoot, sometimes this is translated as shoot or twig or something like that. But it's only found here and in Proverbs 14:3. So let me show you that. In the mouth of the foolish is a rod of pride, but the lips of the wise shall preserve them. So the rod of pride, it's like the rod, it's like the rod, like you hold the rod as your staff, as your scepter. So that's the idea. They have a rod of pride, the foolish people. And this idea, this word of the stem, which is often translated as stump, is found in Isaiah 40:24. Yea, they shall not be planted, yea, they shall not be sown. Yea, their stock shall not take root in the earth. They shall also blow upon them, and they shall wither, and the whirlwind shall take them away as stubble. Their stock. This is the one. This is the word that they use there. The stock is the word that they use for stem here. So it can be stock, it can be stem, it can be stump, like the tree that's been cut down. And also Job 14 has it too. So let me show you that real quick. Though the root thereof wax old in the earth, and the stalk thereof die in the ground. The stalk is the geza. It's the same word. Okay. So the roots of the tree, right? This is talking about a tree. But there is hope of a tree, if it be cut down, that it will sprout again, and that the tender branch thereof will not cease. Though the root thereof wax old in the earth, and the stalk thereof die in the ground. So we still have hope even after you cut down a tree, and that's what this is talking about too. But this idea, like when he uses this word of the netzer, the branch, it's similar to the word used in I mean, it's not the same word, but it's a similar idea. In that day shall the branch of the Lord be beautiful and glorious, and the fruit of the earth shall be excellent and comely for them that are escaped of Israel. So the branch here is the same idea. It's the idea of a family tree, you know? It's the family tree that's growing up. And so here it's referring to the human ancestry of the Messiah, right? And then in chapter 9, verse 1, nevertheless, the dimness shall not be such as was in her vexation, when at first he lightly afflicted the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali, and afterwards did more grievously afflict her by the way of the sea, beyond Jordan, and Galilee of the nations. And as it goes on, actually, you can keep reading here, but the emphasis is on the Messiah's birth here. All right? From 9:1 to 7 is a poem about the Messiah. And that's where it talks about here with his the famous line here is for unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. So all these prophecies about Jesus from chapter 7, the one about the virgin shall be with child, then chapter 9, this one about the Prince of Peace, and then this one about the branch, they've been placed in a certain order here to help us understand. They should be understood together, you know? They should be understood as a kind of progression. He's making a point over the course of a few chapters here. Now, if we go to verse 2, and the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and of the fear of the Lord. So the Spirit of the Lord has been given these 7 kind of spirits or ways or aspects or dimensions or something, you know? And this is what Kako was asking about, I think. A branch is different from a vine, right? Yeah, branch is different from a vine. I mean, I wouldn't worry too much about that. If you're thinking of John 15, I wouldn't worry too much about that because the metaphor doesn't seem to be the same metaphor here. Oh, you want some Hebrew classes too? All right, cool. Let me work on that. I'm always prophetically known. It was always prophetically known that the Savior would come from Nazareth, but that then was said, could anything good come out of Nazareth? That's very controversial. They really knew the word. Isn't it weird? Oh, you know what happened? You know why? You know why? They didn't know Nazareth. They knew Bethlehem. That's why when the wise men went to Herod and they asked him about the king, the Herod's wise men told them that he would come in from Bethlehem, okay? Because that's what they know. And then because Bethlehem is like the city of David. That's why they think of it that way, huh? But that's why. But the Nazareth thing, they didn't know. They didn't get that. That's why they never knew that thing. That's why he was asking that in John chapter 1. I think it was who was that? I don't know. I think it was Nathaniel was saying that. Anyway, so from the OT, the Spirit of the Lord in the OT, right? In the Old Testament, the Spirit of the Lord endows people for different tasks that he has for them. Okay. Let me show you some examples of that. Exodus 31. Sorry, wrong thing. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, See, I have called by I've called by name Bezaleel the son of Uri, the son of Hur, the tribe of Judah, and I have filled him with the Spirit of God, in wisdom and in understanding and in knowledge and in all manner of workmanship. Because those guys are the guys that are going to build up the tabernacle and stuff. Right? That's why he gave them all those skills. Okay. And then you can also see this in Judges 6:34. But the Spirit of the Lord came upon Gideon, and he blew a trumpet, and Abiezer was gathered after him. So Gideon, one of the judges, was given the Spirit of the Lord, right? And then there's also some individuals that seem to have this almost permanent indwelling of the Spirit, almost similar to what we enjoy as disciples of Jesus, as believers in Jesus, I should say. Numbers 11:17. And I will come down and talk with thee there, and I will take of the Spirit which is upon thee, and will put it upon them, and they shall bear the burden of the people with thee, that thou bear it not thyself alone. So this is when God's talking to Moses, right? Let me read this part. The Lord said to Moses, Gather unto me 70 men of the elders of Israel, whom thou knowest to be the elders of the people and officers over them, and bring them unto the tabernacle of the congregation, that they may stand there with thee. And I will come down and talk with thee there. And I will take of the Spirit which is upon thee, the Spirit which is upon thee, that's Moses, and I'll put it upon them. And they shall bear the burden of the people with thee, that thou bear it not thyself alone. So it's almost like Moses has the Spirit on him all the time, and then God is able to give a bit of it to those other leaders so that they can kind of judge properly. And also Joshua seems to have it as well. Numbers 27:18. The Lord said unto Moses, Take thee Joshua the son of Nun, a man in whom is the Spirit, and lay thine hand upon him. And also David seemed to have the Spirit as well. And that's why we see in one of the prophecies, one of the Psalms, take not thy Holy Spirit from me. But if we see here in 1 Samuel 16:13, then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brethren, and the Spirit of the Lord came upon David from that day forward. So Samuel rose up and went to Ramah. So the Spirit of the Lord was upon David. You know, it's not quite the same thing as the indwelling that we have, but it's interesting that there were some people like that. Even possibly Elijah and Elisha too. And when the sons of the prophets which were to view at Jericho saw him, they said, The Spirit of Elijah doth rest on Elisha. And they came to meet him and bowed themselves to the ground before him. The Spirit of Elijah doth rest on Elisha. Now, it doesn't seem right to us to think that the literal spirit of Elijah, the prophet, should rest on Elisha. Elijah at this point has been taken up to heaven by God, right? So maybe the spirit of Elijah that they're speaking of here is actually the Spirit of God that was on Elijah. Now it's on Elisha. So I'll let you think about that. But in Isaiah, the Messiah is the Spirit, is endowed with the Spirit. For example, Isaiah 42:1. Behold my servants, whom I uphold, mine elect, in whom my soul delighteth. I have put my Spirit upon him. He shall bring forth judgment to the Gentiles. And then Isaiah 59:21. As for me, this is my covenant with them, saith the Lord. My Spirit that is upon thee, and my words which I have put in thy mouth, shall not depart out of thy mouth, nor out of the mouth of thy seed, nor out of the mouth of thy seed's seed, saith the Lord, from henceforth and forever. This is about the servant, the suffering servant, okay? and also in 61, Isaiah 61, verse 1. The Spirit of the Lord God is upon me. This is the one that Jesus read in the synagogue in Nazareth in Luke chapter 4. He sits down in the synagogue and they give him the book, and then he reads from the book, right? And he reads this, and then he tells them that this prophecy has been fulfilled now in your ears. So this is the one that he reads. The Spirit of the Lord God is upon me, because the Lord has anointed me to preach good tidings unto the meek. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prison to them that are bound, to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord and the day of the vengeance of our God, to comfort all that mourn. Anyway, I won't keep reading it, but this is the one, right? So the Spirit of the Lord God is upon him. And as I was telling you, Jesus explains to the people that he is the fulfillment of that prophecy later on. So let's look at these. Let's look at these ones here. So the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him, right? Which we already saw in other scriptures in Isaiah. And then we have this sevenfold elaboration of the Spirit's work, right? His divine person as the Spirit of the Lord. And then there's these pairs of characteristics: wisdom and understanding, counsel and might, knowledge and fear of the Lord. These are these pairs of characteristics, right? So the first one is that he's the spirit of wisdom and understanding. And these are kind of like judicial attributes. So it's like when he's ruling in the courts, he's going to be able to use these, or when he makes his rulings over the kingdom and stuff like that, right? So they're judicial and they're also governmental. Okay. But just to give you an example of that, take you wise men this is Deuteronomy 1:13. Take you wise men and understanding and known among your tribes, and I will make them rulers over you. See, this is the wise and understanding. Okay, the spirit of wisdom and understanding. And you can also see this in 1 Kings 3:9 and 12. Wow, times flies, boys. Give therefore thy servant an understanding heart to judge thy people. This is when Solomon is asking God for wisdom, and so God asked him, "What? Ask anything you want of me, and I'll give it to you." He says, "Give therefore thy servant an understanding heart to judge thy people." Understanding, that I may discern between good and bad. For who is able to judge this so great a people? And then down here in verse 12. Behold, I have done according to thy words. Lo, I have given thee a wise and understanding heart. This is the words, Shakam and Beam. So that there was none like thee before thee, neither shall there any arise like unto thee. There's some other examples of that, but that's what those words generally mean. They generally mean like it's wisdom and understanding to rule. Okay, to be a good judge. All right. Anyway, and then secondly, you have the spirit of counsel and might. Okay. So this usually appears to be like military strength. So for example, Isaiah 36:5. I say, sayest thou, but they are but vain words. I have counsel and strength for war. Now on whom dost thou trust that thou rebellest against me? So God is kind of making fun of them, right? But I have counsel and strength for war, right? This is the same words. What are these words? Etza and Gavura. So it may not be necessarily referring to this right here, military might. It may be just that it has the ability to plan properly, to devise the right course of action, and also with the prowess to see it through, to get the job done. That's the thing about him. He's like a king that he does everything right, you know? And then thirdly, you have the spirit of knowledge and of the fear of the Lord, right? Now we know already from for example in Proverbs that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. So this is the spirit of knowledge and of the fear of the Lord. So those two are linked. And evildoers are those who do not know those things. Okay. For example, Psalm 14:4. Have all the workers of iniquity no knowledge, who eat up my people as they eat bread, and call not upon the Lord. So these fools, these people that say there is no God, of Psalm 14, they don't have knowledge and they don't call upon the Lord because they don't have fear of the Lord. So fools are not fools don't have these things, but our King has these things in abundance. He has the spirit of these things. You know? And when it says the spirit of knowledge, it's like he knows God as well, you know? Like he's a person that has the knowledge of God, right? So that's why he's able to like judge in a wise way. And he has the knowledge of God. Like this is, for example, let me show you this. 1 Samuel 2:12. Now the sons of Eli were sons of Belial. They knew not the Lord. Okay. And then this is like earlier in the book of Samuel. Then later on in Samuel, when Samuel is actually born. Now Samuel did not yet know the Lord, right? Neither was the word of the Lord yet revealed unto him. So at this time, Samuel is just a little kid living in the temple thing, or in the tabernacle, or where the tabernacle is. So he doesn't know the Lord yet, and and this is when he first meets the Lord, right? But then after that, then he has that blessing. He has the knowledge of God. But our King will always have this. He always has that. All right. So the knowledge of God is often just thought of as like living life in a life of reverence to God. That's like a knowledge of God too. And when it says the fear of the Lord, right? That's like, it's not like you're actually in fear of him, but it's more like you're in this kind of, he's your moral concern. He's the one that you answer to. And Abraham said, because I thought, surely the fear of God is not in this place, and they will slay me for my wife's sake. Because he thought if the fear of God was in the place, then they wouldn't slay him for his wife's sake, right? So it's this idea of acting in a moral way because you know God, because you fear God, right? So that's the idea. Not that they literally are afraid of him, but that he I don't have the sniffles, but thanks. But do I sound a little bit stuffy, eh? I don't know. I do have something going on, maybe. But anyway, so this type of fear of God here, it motivates obedience. It's not fear like where you're scared of him, but it's fear where you respect him and you want to obey him. And Moses said unto the people, fear not, for God is come to prove you, and that his fear may be before your faces, that ye sin not. So that's part of what the fear of the Lord is that ye sin not. Okay? And so that's what he has. of course, we know. And also, the fear of the Lord, it molds our conduct in another way as well. So, for example, Nehemiah 5:9. Also, I said, it is not good that ye do. Ought ye not to walk in the fear of our God because of the reproach of the heathen, our enemies? Or look what it says in 15 as well. But the former governors that had been before me were chargeable unto the people, and had taken of them bread and wine, beside 40 shekels of silver. Yea, even their servants bear rule over the people, but so did not I, because of the fear of God. So he wouldn't take the money because of his fear of God, Nehemiah, right? So that's the idea there. The fear of the Lord is a spirit of loyalty to him as well. Psalm 2:11. Serve the Lord with fear and rejoice with trembling. And also it's a spirit of worshiping God. So Psalm 5, verse 7. But as for me, I will come into thy house in the multitude of thy mercy, and in thy fear will I worship toward thy holy temple. Okay. And also remember that we saw that David had the spirit of God in him, right? So look in Psalm 20, 2 Samuel 23, verse 2. The Spirit of the Lord spake by me, and his word was in my tongue. So it enabled David to speak this song. This is like this prayer that he makes, you know? So he had the Spirit of God in him at that time. Anyway, I hope that helped Kako with your understanding of the 7 spirits of God there. If you have any other questions about that, let me know. Anyway, so we can go on with verses 3 to 5 now. And shall make him of quick understanding in the fear of the Lord, and he shall not judge after the sight of his eyes, neither reprove after the hearing of his ears. With righteousness shall he judge the poor, and reprove with equity for the meek of the earth. And he shall smite the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips shall he slay the wicked. And righteousness shall be the girdle of his loins, and faithfulness the girdle of his reins. All right, so let's think about this now. So he's continuing to speak about Jesus's reign, right? But this section is more discussing like the rule of the Messiah. So the first two were describing the Messiah himself, his character, the way he is. And 3 to 5 now is talking about his reign and what it's going to be like. Okay. So let me get down to that section now. So we see here that the Lord, that he responds to God in his own person. All right. And also in verse 5 we see that as well. But also in his office, so he responds in his person, but also in his office as the Messiah, as the king. So he responds to God in 2 ways, both personally and in his duty as a king. So inwardly he's delighting. I shall make him of quick understanding in the fear of the Lord. So quick understanding. That's the spirit. The Spirit of the Lord is in him and makes him of quick understanding in the fear of the Lord, right? It shows that he has like good ability to judge properly through God. And also he commits himself to acting righteously in his judgments, as we see here. Sorry, give me 1 sec. So there's this kind of, the fear of the Lord thing is kind of like a domino between here and here, where the fear of the Lord is that's the domino. When that domino tips, then we see all these other effects of it in his reign. That's why the fear of the Lord is the last one. Okay, because then that shows you that the fear of the Lord is what guides him into all these behaviors in his reign in 3 to 5. Okay. So all these things, the wisdom, understanding, counsel, power, knowledge, all these things are visible in his reign from here to the end of verse 4. Okay, because why is all that? Because of the fear of the Lord that was here. The fear of the Lord, the fear of the Lord. And then all these things, they come from the fear of the Lord. Because as we saw, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, right? The beginning of wisdom. Now, in David's line, David's actual line of kings, right? They all pretty much failed. Some of them were pretty good, much better than the kings of Israel, but they were still failed to be, to be the proper king that we wanted, that we needed, So some of them were failing by their own defects of their character. They're just evil. Some of them because they weren't that smart of administrators, like Hezekiah, for instance. But in this king, everything is perfect in harmony. He doesn't make any mistakes. He's perfect, And anything that God gives him is he's happy with it, and he uses it. He's given a quick understanding, And he doesn't judge after the sight of his eyes or the hearing of his ears, but only by righteousness. And so that's very different than the other kings of Judah as well. I wanted to show you this one. Psalm of David. I wonder if I should read this whole thing. It's not that long. Let me just read the whole thing, okay? The Psalm 101. I will sing of mercy and judgment unto thee, O Lord. I will sing. I will behave myself wisely in a perfect way. O when wilt thou come unto me? I will walk within my house with a perfect heart. I will set no wicked thing before mine eyes. I hate the work of them that turn aside. It shall not cleave to me. A froward heart shall depart from me. I will not know a wicked person. Whoso privily slandereth his neighbor, him will I cut off. Him that hath an high look and a proud heart will not I suffer. Mine eyes shall be upon the faithful of the land, that they may dwell with me. He that walketh in a perfect way, he shall serve me. He that worketh deceit shall not dwell within my house. He that telleth lies shall not tarry in my sight. I will early destroy all the wicked of the land, that I may cut off all the wicked doers from the city of the Lord. Amen. Wow, dudes, I can't believe I'm only at verse 4. This is so bad. All right, I gotta move. Okay. Let's look at verse 3. I don't want to go there right now. His ability to distinguish between reality. So yeah, by the way, see how he has this, he shall not judge by the sight of his eyes or the hearing of his ears, but with righteousness, right? Sometimes when we judge by what we see and what we hear, we don't always get it right. But that's why we walk by faith, not by sight, right? And that's what Jesus is doing here. He does not judge by what he sees and what he hears, but with righteousness. And this is why, because he's doing it through faith. I wonder if I should show you this one. I want to show you all these. I have so many of these verses I want to show you guys, but I'm going to run out of time. Anyway, to fetch about, this is 2 Samuel 14:20. To fetch about this form of speech hath thy servant Joab done this thing. And my Lord is wise, according to the wisdom of an angel of God, to know all things that are in the earth. So Joab's talking to David, right? But this is just, it's kind of like it's another kind of like reference to Jesus, because Joab is talking about David, but he's really saying things that are only true of Jesus. But Jesus is the son of David. Anyway, verse 4. With righteousness shall he judge the poor and reprove with equity for the meek of the earth. And he shall smite the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips shall he slay the wicked. So the righteousness and the judge, this is like the judge, like just judgments. Okay, he's gonna judge with justice, and righteousness here is tzedek. It's they're often put together, these two words, and they're often put together about God. So it's interesting that they use them about this king as well, because we know he is God as well. But this word, the justice word, is often thought of as like what is straight or what is true, and what is equitable, with equity for the meek. So he's going to judge with equality, like to not like cheat the poor people just because they don't have any power, right? He's going to treat everybody with equity and fairness, right? So he doesn't favor the needy so as to sway decisions in their favor. But whatever is right and fair must prevail, right? Which is unlike the princes that came before him that were so degenerate, which we saw in, for example, if you look at chapter 1, verse 21 and read on, you'll see how the other kings were. I won't go there right now because I'm running out of time. But this prince, this king gives his full attention to the cause of the people. Let me show you that quickly and then we'll move on. So Psalm 72:2. You shall judge thy people with righteousness and thy poor with judgment. Judgment here. This is the same two words, tzedek and mishpat, but it says judgment of justice, right? The mountains shall bring peace to the people, and the little hills by righteousness. He shall judge the poor of the people. He shall save the children of the needy, and shall break in pieces the oppressor. This is about the Messiah. I could read you some more actually from there. Hang on, let me just read a little bit more. If you go down to 12 to 14, for he shall deliver the needy when he crieth, the poor also, and him that hath no helper. He shall spare the poor and the needy, and shall save the souls of the needy. He shall redeem their soul from deceit and violence, and precious shall their blood be in his sight. So the king, this king, the great king Jesus, is very much concerned about the poor and the needy, right? But it's not about favoring them or giving them any special treatment. It's just about being fair to everyone, And also, his penalty always matches the crime. He's on that kind of law, Like that's why he smites the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips shall he slay the wicked, because he punishes those who sin with the same sin that they deal. The punishment fits the crime, as we saw here in Exodus 21:23. And if any mischief follow, thou shalt give life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burning for burning, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. And if a man smite the eye of his servant or the eye of his maid, that it perish, you shall let him go free for his eye's sake. So the punishment must fit the crime, right? That's how Jesus rules as well. When it talks about the rod of his mouth and the breath of his lips, that's like the word he speaks, right? That because the king doesn't need any power but the word that he speaks. His power is the word that he speaks. Revelation 19:15. And out of his mouth goeth a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations. And he shall rule them with a rod of iron, and he treadeth the winepress of the fierceness and wrath of Almighty God. And 19:21. And the remnant were slain with the sword of him that sat upon the horse, which sword proceeded out of his mouth. and all the fowls were filled with their flesh. Amen. So this breath here is like the ruach. It's the same word that they use for the spirit. So it can be breath, it can be wind, or it can be spirits. All right. Here it's a breath, but it's often used about the spirit of God too. Like for example, where was it? The ruach of knowledge, right? The ruach of the Lord. So this is his power to impose the divine will onto things, you know? His word is effective. Wherever he speaks his word, then his power is seen. Psalm 33:6. By the word of the Lord were the heavens made, and all the host of them by the breath of his mouth. The breath, the ruach of his mouth, right? So here when it says the ruach of his lips shall he slay the wicked, is that idea, okay? Verse 5, and righteousness shall be the girdle of his loins, and faithfulness the girdle of his reins. So the loins are like, you know, it's part of your lower extremities, right? But it's saying that, and also the reins are your kidneys. And but when it's more of a figure of speech that they use in Hebrew to refer to like his inner person or his inner being. Okay. So when it says that righteousness and faithfulness, that's the basis of him, or his inner personality is righteousness and faithfulness. But here they use this motif of like clothing, right? Like the girdle is a piece of clothing, right? And so it's this garment to express it. I mean, the garments usually express this reality and this capacity of a person. Okay. And also the purposes that he commits himself to. But let me show you an example of that. Isaiah 59:16. And he saw that there was no man and wondered that there was no intercession. Therefore his arm brought salvation unto him, and his righteousness is sustained him. For he put on righteousness as a breastplate, and a helmet of salvation upon his head. And he put on the garments of vengeance for clothing, and was clad with zeal as a cloak. So all these are like showing that the clothing represents these characteristics that he has. They're showing his personality, you know? And when it talks about the girdle, it's really talking about a belt, okay? When it uses this word girdle. So it's like this thing that they would tie around their waist. All right. It's not like a girdle, like nowadays we think of a girdle as a woman's garment, but this is something men would wear. And they tie like a piece of cloth around their waist, okay? But tying it means that you're ready for action. If you tie up your girdle, you're sometimes he'll say, gird up thy loins like a man. Like in Job 38, he tells that to Job, right? It means you get ready to fight or you get ready for action, because they have these clothes that it's like it hangs down low and they're loose, right? But if you want to get ready for some kind of action or to do some work, you got to tie it up. And so when he says gird up thy loins like a man, that's what he means. And so here, that's what it represents as well. He has the girdle because he's ready for action. He's ready to do his job, you know? And that also resembles verse 3, right? Because he's like, his emotions, you know, he has quick understanding in the fear of the Lord. He doesn't have this emotional response. He doesn't judge by the sight and by the hearing. He judges by true righteousness. So it's a similar idea. What else can I say about this here? The righteousness and the faithfulness here These are just always the part of God's will, right? They're always part of who he is. Righteousness and faithfulness, right? And so that's just part of who Jesus is as well, obviously, because he's God. So now I'll read from 6 to 9, okay? The wolf also shall dwell. This section is talking about how his rule when he reigns, like we read about his reign here from 3 to 5. That's how his reign is going to be. He's going to judge in righteousness. Then from 6 to 9, now we see what is his kingdom like under his reign, okay? And so the wolf also shall dwell with the lamb, and the shepherd shall lie down with the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf and the young lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. And the cow and the bear shall feed, their young ones shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox. And the suckling child shall play on the hole of the asp, and the weaned child shall put his hand, on the cockatrice's den. Amen. So this is the picture of the Messiah's kingdom, which is going to be predator and prey living in harmony, children playing in safety near these animals that we would never leave a child around normally, right? And there's no harm, there's no violence, there's no kind of destruction in that place anymore, in God's mountain. And so this is kind of reversing the curse of Genesis 3. In Genesis 3, then the earth was cursed, right? And then that after the fall, then these things started happening where animals were killing each other and eating each other and all this stuff. That didn't occur in Eden. So this is kind of a return to Eden, you know? And when it talks about the holy mountain, here, that refers to God's redeemed world, not just the mountain like Zion, but the whole world is going to be like this. Because remember when we read in Isaiah 9, there we saw that it was like this light is coming and it's breaking in on the earth. The earth is dark, but there's this light breaking in. That's the Messiah, right? And then it illuminates the people. The people that walked in darkness have seen a great light. And they that dwell in the land of the shadow of death, upon them hath the light shined. So that light, that's when it's just breaking in, right? And so that's explained by the birth of the Messiah when he's first born. But now that's reversed. Now it's like the Messiah buds forth as a branch, as a branch, and then through him, new life comes for the people, and it's all over the world, not just where he is, but all over the whole world. Okay, and even the life of nature itself is transformed. Like these animals that used to kill each other, now they lie down together, and even the lion. Where does it say the lion shall eat straw like the ox? You see, so even the animal's own nature is changed now to this nature of peace and without death, you know? So, well, there's this kind of order here. So first we saw this thing, the wolf with the lamb, the leopard with the kid, the calf and the young lion, the little child shall lead them. This is saying that all these former enemies are now they're at peace. There's no more problem, and even the child can lead these dangerous animals like a leopard and a lion and stuff. Okay, because there's no danger anymore. And then in verse 7, the cow and the bear shall feed. The bear is like this predatory animal, right? Like, for example, where did I see that? Anyway, I'll show you that in a minute. But then, and then this is like in Eden, they used to eat They used to eat plants, you know? And God said, Behold, I've given you every herb bearing seed which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in the which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat. And to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creepeth on the earth, wherein there is life, I've given every green herb for meat. Meats being food, not meat, not literal meat, but food, right? So he's given them every green herb for their food. So that's kind of been restored here in Isaiah 11, where the lion shall eat straw like the ox. And then in verse 8, we see the curse has been removed. Okay, the sucking child shall play on the hole of the asp, and the weaned child shall put his hand on the cockatrice's den. So remember in Genesis 3:15, it said, I will put enmity between thee and the woman. I'll put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. And it shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. This is the serpent, right? But here, you see the sucking child shall play on the hole of the asp. The asp is a snake. It's a serpent. It's a poisonous snake, too. So you would never let a child play with the asp. Never in a million years. But in this world, you can when the Messiah returns. And then finally in verse 9, they shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. So this is saying that Zion is now filling the whole earth, and there's peace wherever it goes, and holiness as well, and knowing the Lord. All these things. So everywhere in the world there's peace, holiness, and knowing the Lord. Okay, this is part of the Messiah's reign. Now, I don't know if I should go through all these words individually. I'm going to run out of time. I don't want to leave it either, though. Anyway, let me just see what I could do here. When it says the wolf shall dwell with the lamb, this is like this, they'll dwell like, it's like this very nice type of touch, you know? I don't know how to put this. It's like saying that he'll be welcome as a foreigner. That's what this word gur is often used to refer to like the sojourner or someone who's traveling through. And they're like, so they're not from the place, right? They're not from Israel. And then God will say, be kind to the sojourner. So that's the word they use. So when it says that the wolf also shall dwell with the lamb, it's saying these two who are foreign to each other, now they dwell together. That's the idea there, right? So it's this kind of nice touch in the Hebrew. And the leper shall lie down with the kid. And the child, nar katan, the little child. This is the same word that Solomon used in 1 Kings 3:7 to discuss his own inexperience. And now, O Lord my God, thou hast made thy servant king instead of David my father. And I am but a little child. So it's the same words, the katan na'ar. So that's another thing. So he's going to be able to lead the animals and have leadership over them. And the cow and the bear shall feast. So the bear is like a predator, right? So 1 Samuel 17. And David said unto Saul, thy servant kept his father's sheep, and there came a lion and a bear and took a lamb out of the flock. And I went out after him and smote him and delivered it out of his mouth. And when he arose against me, I caught him by his beard and smote him and slew him. So the cow and the bear, now they're formerly they were enemies. They were the bear was a predator, but now they're friends. And also the point here is also that they're eating the same food. That's the other thing about it. It's not trying to say the same thing as this. This is saying about how the predator and the prey are now friends. This is saying kind of the same thing, but it's also saying that they're eating the same food. That's the important aspect here, okay? Oh, and also you see how their young ones shall lie down together. That shows that it's not just in the one generation, but this continues throughout the generations. Like even as their children also are able to just feed together and be together, lie down together, because there's no more. Everything's changed. There's no more violence anymore. You know. And then in verse 8, the sucking child is completely helpless if there's any danger, right? But for some reason, this child can put his hand on the home of the asp, a dangerous, poisonous serpent. It's showing that there's no danger to the child from that thing anymore. There's some different translations of these words, the asp and the cockatrice. But it's basically the cockatrice is like, if for English, it's like this mythical animal. This word, sebva, is not really known. It's one of these words that doesn't appear very often, as they don't actually know what it means. But cockatrice is like this dangerous mythical animal, right? But if we think about it, may be something like the asp. It's like this dangerous thing that the child should not be around. Yeah. And then they have this thing, the den, the me'ura. This is another word that's kind of an uncertain meaning, but it's probably means something like, yeah, the den or the nest or the cave, some people have said, you know. And then verse 9 is kind of a summary of verses 6 to 8. And then it also gives a bit of an explanation. So this part is, they shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain. That's kind of telling us what happened in 6 to 8, right? And then this part, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. That's explaining why. Why is everything so peace now? Because the earth is full of the knowledge of the Lord. That's why, you know? I feel like I can show you. Let me show you these things quickly. So Psalm 96, 11. Let the heavens rejoice and let the earth be glad. Let the sea roar and the fullness thereof. Let the field be joyful and all that is therein. Then shall all the trees of the wood rejoice before the Lord when he cometh. For he cometh to judge all the earth. He shall judge the world with righteousness and the people with his truth. Amen. So this is just to show you the joy that occurs when God returns and judges, okay? Psalm 98, 7. Let the sea roar and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. Let the floods clap their hands, let the hills be joyful together before the Lord, for he cometh to judge the earth. With righteousness shall he judge the world, and the people with equity. Amen. So when he comes and sets the world right, everything's gonna be full of joy and peace. Okay. 65 Isaiah 65:25. The wolf and the lamb shall feed together, and the lion shall eat straw like the bullock, and thus shall be the serpent's meat. They shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountains, saith the Lord. So this is kind of repeating that idea later on in the book, as we'll read later. But these words harm and destroy, or hurt and destroy, ra'ah and shahat. These are like, they're not used in the form of an object. So it means that there's absolutely no hurt, no, what is it? No hurt and no destruction, right? There's nothing, none of that whatsoever. It doesn't matter what the object is, that never occurs, okay? So they will neither act wrongly or corruptly, basically. Wow, so many stuff. The knowledge of the Lord here, right? The knowledge of the Lord here is a verbal noun. It's one noun, okay? And it's similar to what we saw in verse 3. The fear of the Lord. Yira. Here they use this word, is it yada? Deya. So this is like, it's more alive than the abstract word of knowledge. Okay, this is more like it's like they fully know him. They know him. You know, it's not just like knowledge. When you think of knowledge, you think, okay, you know these facts about something, right? But this is more like you know things, something intimately. You really truly have that knowledge of him. It's internalized to you. You know, that's the idea. Because the Holy God dwells with them and he welcomes them, right? So they're entering into this personal communion with him, and that's how they can know him at that level, okay? And so everywhere God is present in his holiness, and every place the knowledge of him is enjoyed to the full extent. Oh man, wow, it's 9 o'clock already. I'm gonna try to get through this, guys. What's the coffees? Yeah, no, I need it. The new earth or the new heaven. Yeah. This is like in those days. Yeah, when the Messiah returns. Paradise is probably in the earth. It's probably like, it seems to be like this place where the unsaved, where the saved people go. When they die, at least before Christ, at least before the cross. Now he probably seems to go to heaven, but at the time before the cross, it seems like they went to this place called paradise. There would be saved people in heaven and others on earth. Oh no, it's probably the new heaven and the new earth, like you were saying here. Okay. Now 10 to 16. And in that day there shall be a root of Jesse, which shall stand for an ensign of the people. To it shall the Gentiles seek, and his rest shall be glorious. So remember that this thing is forming an inclusio with the first one, right? The roots of Jesse, ensign for the people, the Gentiles. All these things are forming up the these are the words: the roots, Jesse, the ensign, which is like the sign or like a standard, and what are the words here? Oh, the Gentiles, I think. And yeah, if you look at verse 1, the stem of Jesse and the roots, right? And some other words, I think, maybe. No, I thought the ensign sign was here. Anyway, so those things form the what I was telling you about, the inclusio. So all the words that you see here in verse 10 that also appear in verse 1, they form a kind of theme for the piece, okay? That's how you can understand the piece a little bit better. And then the root of Jesse is the ensign of the people. The ensign is like a banner. So like when the armies come, they'll have like a guy with like a flag type of thing or a banner. And that's to recognize, okay, that's their colors. Oh, that army has those colors, And that's why this is going to be an ensign for the people that he'll carry. But he's going to draw all nations to himself. That's because he has the standard. So then they come to the standard. They come to him to say, okay, that's our king. Let's go to him. Let's follow him. So that's why you see this in Isaiah 42:4. He shall not stand. He shall not fail nor be discouraged till he set judgment in the earth, and the isles shall wait for his law. The isles are all the like Gentile people. That's what they represent, right? And so they'll wait for his law because he's their king. Like now they know that he's their king. And that's why they follow the ensign of the people, the banner. And then so the emphasis is on the root of Jesse and that he's leading the Gentiles, the nations, okay? So the Gentiles are going to be incorporated into the nation of Israel. And so it shall the Gentiles seek. Some people will say rally. If you know that term, like when somebody rallies after a certain thing, that means they follow after it closely. For the people turneth not unto him that smiteth them, neither do they seek the Lord of hosts. This is the same word, seek. Okay, in Isaiah 9:13. Seek. And when it says this thing about his rest, the menucha, that's an interesting word. We don't really see it. Sometimes it's translated as home. The Lord grant you that you may find rest. Ruth 1:9. Each of you in the house of her husband. And she kissed him, and they lifted up their voice and wept. But here, the Lord grant you that you may find rest, right? Menucha. It's the same word. And then in Psalm 23, the famous psalm, the Psalm of David, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. The leadeth here is nachak. I think that's the thing. It's like related. The still water. Oh, that's what it is. Oh, the still water. The word still here. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. The word still here is menucha. This is the same word as the rest here. So the rest here is not like you rest because you're tired, but it's the rest of you're still now. You've finished your work, so now you're rest. Now you're gonna be still. Okay. And it's also used about the place where the ark rests. And they departed from the mount of the Lord 3 days' journey, and the ark of the covenant of the Lord went before them in the 3 days' journey to search out a resting place for them. Resting place is Menucha. And God's rest for his people when they are at home is also referred to with this word. For ye are not as yet come to the rest and to the inheritance which the Lord your God giveth you. Unto whom I swear in my Psalm 95:11, unto whom I swear in my wrath that they should not enter into my rest. Menukah. So the Messiah is going to come home. Where he dwells, there is glory. Glorious, right? Because God's there in all his glory, right? Which we can see here. And the Lord will create upon every dwelling place of Mount Zion and upon her assemblies a cloud and smoke by day and the shining of a flaming fire by night. For upon all the glory shall be a defense. Isaiah 4:5. And also, if you look at 6:3, you see the glory of God. And one cried unto another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. Amen. So now 11 to 16 is its own little poem, right? So these kind of match. These are giving you kind of the assurance similar to what we saw in Isaiah 9:7. Of the increase of his government and peace there shall be no end. Upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with judgment and with justice from henceforth even forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this. This is when it was talking about the Prince of Peace. It says this. Okay? And this is basically the same idea that we're going to get here from 11 to 16. So it's the zeal of the Lord Almighty that accomplishes this, right? His zeal is his passion, his intense desire, you know? But it's interesting that before it was talking about the root of Jesse and the shoots, like Jesus, now it's more switching to the Lord, to the Father, you know, and his hand, the Lord's hand, which is a symbol of his personal action, right? So here it's like, and it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria, from Egypt, and from Pathros, and from Cush, and from Elam, and from Shinar, and from Hamath, and from the islands of the sea. So now God's going to assemble his people and renew them, verses 12 and 13. Because before the Messiah was, under the Messiah, the world was transformed, right? Completely reordered, like to the point where like lions are eating straw. But now it's like talking about the kingdom and the kingdom being spread and realized everywhere. Okay. But anyway, let's look at 11. So that when it says the thing, and it shall come to pass in that day, that links with verse 10, right? Because verse 10 also had that thing. And in that day, there shall be a root of Jesse. So it's the same day. Even though before I was talking about the root of Jesse or the shoots or the stem of Jesse, the rod of Jesse, right? Now it's saying about the Lord and his hand, but it's the same day. So that's what connects these two poems, okay? The day. But this idea of the day tells us also that it's like the end times, the last day, the day of his judgment, right? And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people. So it means like he's gonna add to or do again, and or will take possession of this place. Like this verb. Wait. Set his hand again. I think it's this word, this verb, yasaf. But this verb is used in the Exodus conquest narrative. So let me show you that. This is the song of Moses after the Egyptians were taken away by the water. Then Moses sang this song. It says, "Fear and dread shall fall upon them, by the greatness of thine arm, they shall be as still as a stone. Till thy people pass over, O Lord, till the people pass over which thou hast purchased." Where's this word though? Wow, sorry guys. Can't find the word. So bad. Where's this word? Is it this word? Anyway, I'm gonna move on because I'm not sure what word they're talking about there. But the fact that he used his hand, right? His hand. It's used like kind of like an adverbial sense of the word hand. So let me show you that. Psalm 44:2. How thou didst drive out the heathen with thy hand and plantest them. How thou didst afflict the people and cast them out. So obviously God didn't literally use his hand to do that, right? But his hand represents his power. And so that's what they're using it here. The Lord shall set his hand against the second time to recover the remnant of his people, right? And that's another thing we also see often in the Exodus as well, the hand of God. And I'm sure that the king of Egypt will not let you go. No, not by a mighty hand. And I will stretch out my hand and smite Egypt with all my wonders, which I will do in the midst thereof. And then if you look at Exodus chapter 6, verse 1, and the Lord said unto Moses, now shalt thou see what I will do to Pharaoh, for with the strong hand shall he let them go, and with the strong hand shall he drive them out of his land. Amen. There's a lot of those type of things in the Exodus about the hand of God. I won't go into all of them. But you can check out Exodus 13:3 and Deuteronomy 6:21 if you want to see a few more examples. When it says the second time, though, right? The second time, this is to show, it's the thought of the repeated action, right? It's like, it's saying that he did this already at Exodus, okay? He had already kind of freed them from slavery and restored them to being a nation. But this is going to be a worldwide exodus, a worldwide peace giving and removal from slavery, you know? That's why he mentions all these nations, Assyria and Egypt. These are the nations that were oppressing the Israelites, right? But all these people are going to become, like, there's going to be a remnant of God's people in all these nations: Assyria, Egypt, Pathros, Cush, Elam, Shinar. Shinar is like Babylon, and Hamath, and the islands of the sea. That's just like wherever else. But Assyria and Egypt were classic like foes of the of the Israelites and of God, right? But here there's some remnant among them, which are the Lord's people, and they will be gathered. Okay. And then these places, Pathros and Cush, these are further south. Pathros is like Upper Egypt. And when I say Upper Egypt, I mean Southern Egypt, because it's called Upper Egypt because they're going up, because the Nile comes down. The Nile goes north, right? So as you come to the head of the Nile, or the delta, the Nile delta, is lower, right? So when you go north, when you go south now in Egypt, then you're going to Upper Egypt because you're going up. You're going up like in altitude, and then Cush is Cush, that's Patras, that's like northern Egypt or southern Egypt, and then Cush is Ethiopia. But sometimes Cush is thought of as Nubia, which is also like the southern part of, like, south of Egypt slightly. Okay. And then you have Elam and Shinar. These are more to the east. Okay. And then Hamath is in the far north. And then the islands of the sea, they're just added there for like some extra to show everybody else, basically. But they put Babylon under this name Shinar. Babylon is their enemies, right? And they're the ones that are going to take them away. But here he calls them Shinar for some reason. This is the same word that was used in Genesis 11 when they made the tower. And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And it came to pass as they journeyed from the east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar. And they dwelt there. And this is when they built the Tower of Babel, right? Shinar is usually associated with Babylon, or what we now call like Iraq. So Shinar is probably used to symbolize their wickedness at Babel, to show that even those wicked people, among those, even those wickedest people, they're symbolically wicked from Genesis. But still, even among them, there's this remnant who loves God, right? And they'll be gathered. Then we have verse 12. And he shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. So the ensign is the banner, right? Like the army banner. And this is also in verse 10. We saw the same thing. The ensign. He shall stand for an ensign of the people. Okay. An ensign for the nations, the Goyim. And so the nations are being summoned to this great gathering of all the people. And this we'll see again and again in Isaiah. You can check in 19, 23 to 25. You can check in Isaiah 45, 22 to 24. Or the banner thing, the banner motif, is seen quite a bit in Isaiah 49, 22 to 26. Okay? But when the word is translated here as the outcasts, this is more like outcast is a good word, or you might say scattered or something like that. Okay, that's what that word usually means. So outcast is a good word for it. And this is something that he's already forewarned us about, right? You go to Isaiah 6:11. Then said I, Lord, how long? And he answered, until the cities be wasted without inhabitants, and the houses without man, and the land be utterly desolate. And the Lord have removed men far away, and there be a great forsaking in the midst of the land. But yet in it shall be a tenth, and it shall return, and it shall be eaten, as a teil tree and as an oak, whose substance is in them, when they cast their leaves. So the holy seed shall be the substance thereof. So the Lord's promises are going to be fulfilled. This is what he's already spoken about Isaiah, right? So now he's reiterating it here, But now it's like this translation is saying it's the outcast. It's to everyone all over the whole earth, you know? Because that's why it says that they'll be gathered together from the four corners of the earth. It's like everywhere, not just some things. You know, this is a fulfillment of Matthew 24:31. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. So that's what this is. Okay, it's the same prophecy. Then 13, the envy also of Ephraim shall depart, and the adversaries of Judah shall be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not vex Ephraim. So this is referring to the restoration of David's kingdom, okay? When the two sections of God's people, Ephraim was the northern kingdom, the north, like we call it Israel, we call them the kingdom of Israel, but the Bible will often call it Ephraim, because that was one of the big tribes that they had, okay? So now it's saying that those two kingdoms, Judah and Ephraim, where the Judah was the southern kingdom and Ephraim or Israel was the northern kingdom. So now it's saying they're going to be united again. Okay. But this is not just they're unified. This is like truly they're one nation again, and all the jealousy, all the hostility, all that's gone now, right? That's why it's saying they should not envy Ephraim, should not envy Judah, and Judah shall not vex Ephraim. Anyway, I'm gonna move on now. So then, 14. But they shall fly upon the shoulders of the Philistines toward the west. They shall spoil them of the east together. They shall lay their hand upon Edom and Moab, and the children of Ammon shall obey them. So this is that the Davidic king motif, all right? Because now he's conquered the Philistines, right? They shall fly upon the shoulders of the Philistines toward the west and spoil them of the east together. So Judah and Israel are going to conquer all the enemy nations, okay? And they lay their hand upon these countries, Edom and Moab. These are other Edoms, the Edomites, they're descended from Esau. Moab is the Moabites, they're descended from Lot's daughter. And Ammon is another one, they're descended from Lot's other daughter. Okay? But these are enemies of Israel. So, I mean, it's weird because it sounds like they're going to war again, and we just found out that it was peace. But it's more of a metaphor to show that now they're going to be brought under rule, you know? So anyone who's a part of the remnant from these nations, they'll just be part of the kingdom. Others who aren't, they're going to be brought under heel. So the kingdom is spread by it's because Isaiah sees the king as this warrior king. Even though he's a king of peace, he's also a warrior king. So that's why the expansion of his empire or his kingdom is seen as like the expansion of a conquering empire, okay? Just like how a Christian wears the whole armor of God and even the sword of the Spirit. But it's all just metaphorical, right? These nations are not going to fall to the sword. They're going to fall to the gospel. You know? That's the idea here, okay? Which is not unlike this, Acts 15:14. Oh, sorry. Simeon hath declared how God at the first did visit the Gentiles and take out of them a people for his name. And to this agree the words of the prophets, as it is written. After this I will return and will build again the tabernacle of David, which is fallen down. I will build again the ruins thereof, and I will set it up, that the residue of men might seek after the Lord, and all the Gentiles upon whom my name is called, saith the Lord, who doeth all these things. So the Gentiles are going to seek after the Lord, right? Acts 15. So that's this idea here. But it's also true that those who fight against the peace of the Messiah will find their destruction, right? And that's also seen in like Isaiah 63, 1-6. I won't take you there right now. But God's people are going to swoop down, like basically they're going to spoil them, they shall lay their hand upon them, and the children of Ammon shall obey them, right? They're going to fly upon their shoulders. It's like an eagle coming down and attacking them, yeah? So it's interesting that these people of God who were like they were not the people of God, right? But or they though at least the northern kingdom wasn't, and Judah was always fighting with them. But now they've been brought together, and now they become the force that is getting these other nations to come and join him. And now 15, and the Lord shall utterly destroy the tongue out of the Egyptian sea, and with his mighty wind shall he shake his hand over the river, and shall smite in it the 7 streams, and make men go over dry shod. So God is going to remove all the obstacles to his plan, okay? The Egyptian sea that would have frustrated God's purposes is just removed. It's just moved out of his way, right? So that's the idea. In the same way that the Egyptian sea was moved out of his way, he's gonna do the same to anyone who opposes him. And this thing where it says that his mighty wind shall shake his hand, shall smite it. He shall utterly destroy the tongue of the Egyptian sea. Some people say utterly dry up, but destroy is better. To remove from human contact, to destroy. It's haram. The word is haram. So it's like to destroy. It's not really to dry up. And so when something is so vile in God's sight, so abominable, he just destroys it, right? And so that's what that word is for, haram. And then when it says this thing about the tongue of the Egyptian sea, that's like when it says the tongue of the Egyptian sea, it's talking about like a little gulf. You know how they have like a gulf in a piece of water? It looks like a tongue. That's what it's talking about. But this is so. But the tongue of the Egyptian sea is the Red Sea. All right, that's what he's talking about here. This is it looks like a little gulf, you know. Let me see. And then this word dry shod is like a word that's I shall utterly destroy the tongue of his mighty wind, shall she shake his hand over the river. Sorry. I'm trying to find this word. I can't find it right now. Wow. Oh, Nealim, is that the one? Elam. Anyway, I'm not gonna go through every word here. Look, you guys get it, right? God's going. I don't need to go through all these words, right? The fact is, God is going to utterly destroy the tongue of the Egyptian sea. That's the Red Sea with his mighty wind. So he shake his hand over the river. and shall smite it in the 7 streams and make men go over dry shod. So the sea is there, the Red Sea. Just like when Moses crossed the Red Sea, he's talking about the Red Sea. He's saying he's going to remove it out of the way of his army so that they can just walk through. That's what he's saying there. And the fact that it's an east wind, a mighty wind, in Exodus 14:21, it talks about an east wind coming to remove the sea. And Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. So it's an east wind, right? Now it's a mighty wind. But this wind word is ruach, the same word that they use for spirit sometimes. And also, but just the important thing to remember is that this is the Red Sea. The tongue of the Egyptian sea is the Red Sea, the same sea that they crossed with Moses. All right, so I'm going to move on. And the 16, and there shall be a highway for the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria, like as it was to Israel in the day that the camp, in the day that he came up out of the land of Egypt. So the reference to Israel here is that there's more to this remnant of his people than in the original Exodus. The remnant of God's people is more than just the people of Israel now. Then it was but just that one people, the nation of Israel, right? But now it's like all the peoples are being redeemed, right? And brought home to God. And now the remnant is worldwide. It's in all these different nations. There's a remnant in every nation all over the world, you know? That's the idea. So this is like the summoning of the Gentiles in verse 12. You know? This is the same idea. So in verse 11, we saw this kind of spreading of God's reign. It's spreading over all the different lands and everything. It's spreading all over the world. And now in verse 16 here, it's more like it's this universal people. It's this people that is from all over, from everywhere, okay? His people, the remnants. And it's from Assyria because they're like this enemy. Yeah? So it's telling us that even the people of the enemies will be part of God's people in the end, the remnants. So, okay, what can we say about this chapter? Sorry, guys, for taking so long. But anyway, how does Jesus fulfill this prophecy today? Jesus is already the risen king, but his full reign is yet to come, right? His full reign, his full kingdom. So the restoration of creation that we read about here is going to happen at his second coming, right? And then we might ask, are we living under Christ's rule? Well, yes, Christ does rule and reign, and he rules with wisdom and justice, but we have to submit to his lordship. It's not like in this time it's going to be everyone will be forced to submit to his lordship if they're not haven't already done it. But we now have to do it now consciously. We have to make ourselves do it, right? So we want to reflect his justice, his righteousness, and his peace in our own lives. And then this chapter is also reminding us that history is moving toward that final point when God is going to restore everything, right? So we have to remember that. That's what this chapter is focused on. All history, all the world is moving towards the time when God is going to restore peace to everything, all right? So we're waiting for this kingdom where sin and violence and suffering are going to be no more. So this chapter, we saw a direct prophecy of the Messiah, Jesus Christ, coming, the branch. Jesus is both the branch and the roots, which is interesting. He's the branch because he's a human being who branches out of Jesse. He grew out of Jesse. He grew out of David. He's a human. but he's also the root of Jesse, because Jesse comes from him because he's God. God, he created everything. So Jesse, he's the root of Jesse. He's also the branch of Jesse. Okay? And his kingdom is going to bring justice, wisdom, and ultimately peace. And that the whole world is going to be restored, and it's going to remove the curse that sin brought on the world. The sin brought death and destruction and everything, but we're going to have a new Eden when Jesus returns. Okay? And then also the remnants, which is God's people, are coming from every people, the Jews and also the Gentiles. Every nation is going to have a remnant, and they will be gathered under God's rule. Okay, so that is Isaiah chapter 11. I'm sorry it took so long. That was ridiculous. But anyway, I hope you guys learned something. I know probably got boring and a lot of people left, but thanks for sticking around if you did, and if you didn't, it's okay. And I'm going to say a prayer. Heavenly Father, Almighty God, Father, you're clothed in majesty. You're clothed in strength. You're a mighty God, Father, a mighty King, mighty to save. You'll save us, Father. You will rejoice over us with joy. You will rest in your love. You will joy over us with singing. We wait for that day, Father. We long for that day. We'll see your face and the face of your Holy Son, Jesus Christ. On him be glory forever and ever. Amen. All right, you guys. So I'm going to be back. I don't know. I was supposed to start this thing at 10 o'clock. We're doing this thing about the NIFB, but I think maybe 10:15. Okay, I'm sorry. Hopefully that doesn't inconvenience you too much. There will be saved people in heaven and others on earth. No, oh, you asked me this, right? I think I answered this already, but it's the new heaven and the new earth. So when we die, we go to heaven. But when Jesus returns, he comes back to earth. Then this heaven and earth are going to be gone. And then he's going to create a new heaven and a new earth. And that's where we're going to dwell with him and God forever. But okay, thanks everyone. Thanks for joining. Sorry if it took so long, and talk to you soon. God bless you, and thanks for watching Toronto Bible Study. Hallelujah.
Okay. I'm studying the Bible in Toronto. 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 Studying the Bible with Mike, Sam, Pat. These other YouTubers are just so trash. Hit the thumbs up if you want to support. Go follow Mike as he follows the Lord. I'm studying the Bible in Toronto. 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 You better watch out, Mike's calling out the shields. If you're not free grace, you need to sit down and chill. We're not hyper grace, you know we keep it real. Eternally secure, you know that we're sealed. We don't back low, we're not workspace heretics. Mike's not in it for the money, trying to get a lick. They out here selling their souls for a couple clicks. Becoming Freemasons so they can't just get rich. I'm studying the Bible in Toronto. 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 Shout out to Mike, Sam, Pat. Check out his channel, Toronto Bible Study. Subscribe and like.